All right, my second take is that this 2024 season is setting up to be an enormous fulcrum for the Miami Dolphins. Miami entering this 2024 salary cap moment, right at the beginning of the 2024 new league year, have to be in compliance. This free agency process, they were a team that was in a really tricky spot, right? They were a ton of money over the cap. They had a lot of big deals. They had to do some restructures, do some re-signings, let some guys go. Obviously, Christian Wilkins doesn't stay with the team. They were in a little bit of like a come to terms with the cap moment. And I think overall they did a pretty good job, right? Like I would say in general, like they do a Jalen Ramsey restructure. They let Christian Wilkins go. They bring Teron Armstead back on a reworked deal. You lose Jerome Baker, but you bring in Jordan Brooks. Aaron Brewer comes in. They got Geno Smith in. They get Kendall Fuller. They fill a couple gaps. Like Xavier Howard leaves. Like I think they did a pretty nice job overall working around in the margins to make sure this team remains competitive. This team remains able to cash in on Tua Tagovailoa's rookie deal, filling their gaps with mid-level free agents. I think overall they did a good job. With that said, if you look at 2025 cap space, which right now is a prognostication, right? It's made by something called like it's a top 51 projection. That's what we use for 2024 and 2025 because as of right now, the teams after the draft and after undrafted free agency, they will have more players on the roster than the actual 53 that they carry. So it's kind of like an estimation how much cap space they have. But right now, the Dolphins are fifth lowest in 2025 cap space. You say, like, Ben, like, why do we care? Like, who gives a hoot? Like, it's the way in the future, like they're going to have room, like it doesn't matter. The issue is that their 2025 cap space is projected based off of the players that they currently have signed in 2025, and they don't have a lot of them. They have 33 players signed for 2025 right now. Everybody below them has 38, 37, 38, 43. Like the reason they have no cap space is because they have contracts that are built into the future. The Dolphins right now are not really built into the future. The other thing about a lot of those teams is that those teams all have second contract quarterbacks, right? You have the New Orleans Saints with Derek Carr's deal, Deshaun Watson's deal with the Browns. You have the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. You have the Seattle Seahawks. You have the Kansas City Chiefs. Like all those teams are bottom 10 in cap space. They have these big mega quarterback deals, and you have San Francisco's up there too. And like, okay, they've got all their other contracts. But here's Miami right now with no quarterback contract in place. Tua Tagovailoa is on his fifth-year option for 2024. He has not yet been extended. They do not have an extension in place for Jalen Waddle, who's got a fifth-year option in 2025. The upcoming cap hits for Tyreek Hill are at $31.3 million this year, $34.2 in 2025, $56.3 because of his base salary number. They wanted to get it. Oh, it's the biggest wide receiver contract ever in 2026. An enormous deal. Teron Armstead, who just reworked his contract, 10.5 this year, but 22.1 the following year, and 22.1 again in 2026. And you continue to go down the line. Bradley Chubb is worth $26.8 million this year. Next year, the following year, 26.9 in 2027. Sheil, Jalen Ramsey off the restructure, 7.9 this year, 26.2 in 2025. Collectively, Jalen Ramsey, Bradley Chubb, Teron Armstead, and Tyreek Hill combined account for $100 million of 2025 cap. That's four players, Sheil. Those are four players who they got some injury concerns. None of them are particularly young, and all of them are taking 2025 money, of which Tua Tagovailoa, potential franchise quarterback, has not yet seen a dime. This team is in. They are in on Tyreek, Armstead, Ramsey, and Chubb. That's who they built the core of this team around. They have incoming young players. There's young talent in the hopper. You don't want to present that there isn't. There is Jalen Waddle. There is Devon Achane. There is Jalen Phillips. Phillips is going to be on a fifth-year option in 25. Waddle's going to be on a fifth-year option in 25. Tua's on it right now. Like, they need to get to a position where they're either able to win immediately with the current guard or shed the guard and then put that money on Phillips, on Waddle, on Tua, and bring in the next era of Dolphins football. There's obviously an issue with that, which is, do you want to pay Tua that money and have him be the fat $50 million, $55 million contract that would mark him as a top quarterback, mark him as the herald of Dolphins football? And so, coming into 2020, this free agency cycle, I would have been like, man, the Dolphins are in a really like cap unhealthy place. And I think they generally did a good job of letting talent leave and kind of pushing that another year, which gives you another year to look at Tua and kind of understand what you can and can't do. Third year with him under Mike McDaniel, get to the postseason, try to be healthy or whatever. But even if you do that, like you have to walk into this year with no extension on him. and then you potentially have to sign a deal with him when you have only the franchise tag to save you. They're at they did a good job kind of keeping the demons at the door a little bit, but the Dolphins are in a very precarious spot where like the results of this 2024 season will be the difference between Tua $55 million deal or like no deal for Tua, and we're cutting Teron Armstead and we're cutting Bradley Chubb, and we are fully tearing this thing down to the studs. Like, those are kind of the two paths that they have right now.
I think there's one path, and it's not going to be a good path for the Dolphins. I do not like.
I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with what you said. Given the resources they had, how they managed this offseason, I thought it was mostly fine. Like, they were in a bad spot, but I'm looking at this roster right now, and I'm looking how they end. I mean, last season, again, remember, against playoff teams, they were 1-6 with a -110 point differential. I don't know how you watch Tua at the end of the season and think, all right, let's invest $50 million per year in this guy. I mean, they got Tua for 17 games last season. Is that going to happen again? Maybe. Not definite. You mentioned it. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Ramsey, Teron Armstead, their best players are all players at entering their age 30 or older seasons. This team's not good enough. This team isn't going to compete with the best teams in the AFC this year and get to the Super Bowl. I mean, I cannot get there with them given the state of the roster. And so I'm looking at now, well, what do they do? And by the way, they've talked about, no, we're going to extend to this offseason. Now, maybe that's just something you say and it doesn't actually happen, but that's going to be another step in the wrong direction. So this looks to me like a team that is primed to take a step back. I'm not telling you they're going to be like a 4-win team. I think they're a fringe playoff team. I think they're a mediocre team. And I think at this time next season, we'll see what they do with Tua. But like, we're going to be talking about that one very specific path you mentioned, which is, all right, we got to part with some of these veterans. We have to figure out what we're going to do at quarterback. This to me looks like a team that is primed for a step back this upcoming season. So I don't know. That's as I'm going through team by team. And by the way, they lost Vic Fangio on defense. So you lose your defensive coordinator in the offseason. Like, there's just a lot of things there and by the way, Tyreek Hill again in the news for a domestic dispute. Like, I don't know why this guy, it doesn't get brought up over and over again. Like, I mean, some of the most heinous off-field incidents in recent NFL memory, and it doesn't stop. And it just feels like he gets a free pass because he's an incredible player. So that's something else worth mentioning. That is not someone you can rely on here year to year, even week to week, month to month, it feels like. So I don't like where that Dolphins team is at. And that's where I stand with what you said.
I appreciate you mentioning the Tyreek thing because I didn't see it until yesterday. And when I saw it, I said, oh, isn't this just the other thing from earlier this year? And it's not. It's a different thing. And so like when I saw it, my head went like, oh, no, that's like, I've already read this Tyreek Hill domestic incident.
Yeah, it was new reporting. I think on the January incident.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's actual new news. Yeah, I mean, the Dolphins are just like, Xavier Howard right now is a $25.9 million dead cap hit in 2024, and then a $22.9 million in 2025. Like, they have already started the process of just taking these big dead cap hits on veterans, and you can it always looks good in a tweet to be like, well, you cut this guy, post room first this guy, you take this many dead cap hit, and then you have this much space and you can do this. It always looks that good. It never actually works that neatly. It's never actually that clean. And so I know there's a belief that the Dolphins are going to be able to color in the margins on this without like taking any hits moving forward, but they're going to have to. They're going to have to shed talent, get really young, and maybe be very good at a position because they draft extremely well. But that's your only escape. That's your only backdoor out of a cap situation like this. And when you're there, you really want elite talent to help save you. You want elite talent to help pull you through when you have kind of those underperforming positional groups, those big young groups. And I'm not sure they have that at quarterback. And since they don't have that at quarterback, they're a hard team to buy futures on. This feels like it was their window these last couple of years, and it's rapidly closing.
They have the 21st pick, but they have two picks in the first 3 rounds. They have no 3rd round pick because of that Tom Brady tampering thing this season. I think that's right. Yeah, they have no 3rd round. And they lost a lot of players. Like, you can say what you want about Christian Wilkins, Xavier Howard, Jerome Baker, Brandon Jones, Andrew Van Ginkel, Robert Hunt. I'm not telling you these guys, like, all of those players are awesome and pay them whatever they want. But like, you got to get those snaps from somewhere. And so again, they got like, I like the Jordan Brooks deal. I thought that was a good deal. The rest of them, I mean, Jordan Poyer is 33 years old. Shaq Barrett is an older player. They signed it's fine. Kendall Fuller is 29 or 30 years old. So yeah, I don't know that it's going to work out great for that Miami Dolphins team. All right.